Hey, do you want to learn how to animate on Procreate? And do you also want to see me fall into the depths of insanity? Hi, my name's Rachel, aka Animation on a Budget, and today, in celebration of hitting 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be showing you how I animated my sun and moon animation! This video was much different from all the other animations I've made in the past because I used purely Procreate and CapCut instead of my usual Flipaclip. I would use Procreate for my backgrounds, but thought, hey, Procreate has an animation tool, and I do really like drawing on it. Why don't I animate the whole thing on Procreate?
My house! My dog!
Needless to say, it was a bit more complicated than I anticipated. First was the idea. I knew of the song because Tally Hall is my favorite band, and when hearing it, I thought it was perfect for the daycare attendant, for obvious reasons. And after listening to the song for an outrageous amount of times and pacing around in my room, I had a full animation planned in my head. I then started trying different ways to draw Moon and planning the children's designs as well. And here's a fun Faz fact. That is my cousin, and those two are my real-life friends. Hey, do you want to be lifted like Simba by the Moon animatronic from Five Nights at Freddy's?
What?
I'm gonna take that as yes. Oh, and that kid's Izuku Midoriya. And here's where I lied about not using Flipaclip. I used it twice. Here's the first one. I put the song into Flipaclip and made a storyboard as a kind of guide for what shots I'll need to do. My storyboard was pretty rough, but hey, it did its job. I had to plan out what each shot was going to be because every shot was going to be a different project in Procreate. Procreate's animation tool works a little differently from Flipaclip. Instead of using frames like this, it uses layers, having each layer be a frame. With this, it's hard to have a background layer with there only being one background allowed per project. So if there was a background change, it was most likely a different project. Now, while we're on the subject, let's talk about the backgrounds. I knew from past experiences that drawing the background after the animation is generally a bad idea. So I plan to draw a good sketch of all the backgrounds beforehand. And hey, here's another fun Faz fact. Drawing backgrounds is pretty difficult. So I went into the game to get screenshots for references. And I'm gonna confess a little secret. I may have drawn over a couple of the screenshots and just added some of my own stuff. I know. But with some of the background sketch, I could start animating. To animate on Procreate, you need to come up here to Canvas, then select Animation Assist. Your layers will then turn into frames. You can control how many frames you see before and after, the duration of the frame, and what FPS you want to use. Most of the video was in 8 frames per second, minus a few shots where I wanted the action to be faster. There were some design choices that I made with Moon. I decided to have him almost always smiling and have his nightcap kind of move a bit on its own because I thought it looked cool. I will say though, Sun and Moon's clown fringe thing was very difficult to draw. So I didn't animate it right away with the rest of him. I left that up to future me. CapCut was the place I decided to house all the shots to combine into the video. I discovered CapCut when I made my improvement meme, and whoa, my mind was blown. It had camera movements! Whoa, for free!
Swag.
That is a price I can't argue with. So that's where I edited the video. While animating, I had to make sure all the movements were in time with the song. Procreate didn't have the capability to import audio, so I just had to hope my internal timing was correct, and if I wanted to test it, I'd have to export the video, import it into CapCut, and then check the timing. When you start doing that over and over and over again, it gets more fun every time you do that. Oh, notice a slight mistake? Time to do it again! Once the sketching was done, it was time to do the line art. Oh. I never did his clown fringe on any of the shots. That means it's time to go back and draw it on all the frames. Yay! I swear that clown fringe had me questioning everything. You see how sometimes it was drawn differently? That was my sanity dwindling. It was at that moment I started asking myself, what am I doing with my life? What will my friends say? And most importantly, will I ever see my family again? Oh cool, it's done. To do the line art, I would make a new layer and use the onion skin to draw it. I used the mercury brush. I hate that. I used the mercury brush. After I finished a layer, I would hide the sketch and move on to the next. This was a very long process. I even started bringing my tablet to school with me to work on it. But eventually, the line art was done, and now onto color. I was worried about how I was going to have a line layer and a color layer if every layer is a frame. And I was like, I'll worry about that later. But later was now. At the time, I thought I might have to just make the layers and then combine them for a point of no return. Luckily, I didn't have to do that because suddenly, in the dead of night, I remembered that clipping masks exist. I also could have used a group, but I didn't know that existed at the time. A clipping mask layer can only draw on things that have been drawn on the layer below, and also doesn't count as a frame. Basically, I could duplicate each line art layer and make the top one a clipping mask, then use the bottom one as the color, resulting in one frame. Does that make any sense? What do you mean, no? Deciding on what colors to use was very difficult. I don't have a super big understanding of color theory, so I went through at least 10 different versions of Moon with slightly different colors, as well as trying to get a sense of what the background color scheme would be. I wanted the colors to be really pretty. After the colors were sorted out, that then started another grueling process of duplicate, clipping mask, color, repeat. All the while I'm trying to learn what the hell a C-sharp minor chord is. It sucks, by the way, that's what it is. Also, around this point, I kinda started to realize that Procreate couldn't really handle all the projects I was making. So, at many points, it would just crash. Be careful where you draw that line, because it might be your last. Eventually, I got the flat colors down, and oh, would you see what time it is? That's right, folks. I get to draw every single individual star. Yay! While painful, still not as painful as the clown fringe, weirdly. I welcome the stars compared to that. Then, it was time to paint the backgrounds. I kept them in a very sketchy style because I just love the look it gives everything, and it really fits the theme, you know? It really makes you think, yes, I'm in a daycare and I'm having a lovely time. Some of the backgrounds had moving elements, and that's when things got really fun. These shots were the problem children, and this shot was surprisingly painful. When I saw that CapCut could remove backgrounds, I just kind of assumed I'd have no issue. I spent an hour on just that one. First, the color picker was getting really picky about what green I used, and then it was a whole other story trying to figure out the movement of both the background and the moon. I just about had a breakdown in my office service class thing. This scene here, though, was probably the hardest one. First, I had to decide what parts would be moving and make sure they're separate layers. This layer here needed to be animated as well, so I had to make a Procreate project just for that layer, export it, and make a new CapCut project to combine them. Then there was the issue of Sun. I planned to have him running and jumping onto the ledge. This part was easy, I just green screened it, but here, that was difficult. I had to make sure he was jumping on the correct spaces and not in the air, so hang in with me here. I exported the video, chucked it into Flipaclip, second time, then drew over it. And it wasn't even accurate! It was floating in the air! I then tried to fix it in CapCut, but alas. Don't even get me started on the green screen issues. You might ask why I didn't do the animation before the background movements. Shut up. Finally, with most things done, it was time to do the finishing editing, and then the intro and the outro. While this animation was a lot of pain, I had a ton of fun working on it, and I think it might be my favorite of any animation I've done so far. I just think it looks so pretty! And now, here's some fun Faz facts. This shot took the longest, but is also my favorite. Those kids suck. Every one of them. They were problems. And even though the stars were a pain, Moon was actually easier to draw than Sun because of Sun's rays. Those didn't like to cooperate with me. And this took me like 7 to 8 months. Now, would I recommend using Procreate for longer animations or things that are longer than a GIF? No. Would I use it again? Probably. Contradicting answers aside, I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned some life lessons. Toodaloo!